What's up, guys? Here with another video. Right now, I'm just finishing this painting of Spawn and his team. But for this video, I'm going to talk about. Last video was about improvement, and this video is kind of similar. It's how to measure improvement and see if you're actually improving. The thing about learning to draw and paint and do art and stuff, almost learning anything, is that it takes time, right? And you want to make sure you're spending your time wisely, and you want to make sure that you're not wasting your time. So when you're learning something, there has to be standards. Anything. There has to be a way of doing it right. Before you can do the art you want to do, you have to, find a specific thing you want to draw. You got to make sure you master the tools, you master, how to see, how to look at what you're drawing and all of that. And the best way to do that, I feel, is if you got to learn how to draw realistically first. I see a lot of people starting off with cartoons or manga or an anime style, animation style, stuff like that. And honestly, I think that's not the wrong way to go. But you gotta draw realistically first. You have to understand realism. You have to understand how shapes are, And I recommend painting to learn all this stuff. I don't think I improved much until I started painting. Painting helps you understand colors and understand how to make shapes out of colors, and out of brush strokes, and you could do a lot with one brush stroke. When you draw with a pencil all the time, it constricts you and you have to do more work, I feel. When you work with just a pencil, it feels like you have to do way more planning because you're drawing in lines, right? When you're doing, with a brush, like look here, you see that whole area I just covered with the brush? How many lines would that have taken if I used a pen? I'm not sure how many, but it would have definitely taken more than one brush stroke. And that's why I like using brushes more. Brushes allow you to cover more space and work faster, create shapes you would have never created using lines. Lines are different when you make them with a brush than when you make them with a pencil. But yeah, let's get back to, measuring improvement. So you'll never measure improvement if you do not assess yourself, which means, it's a fancy word for testing yourself. And you're never going to test yourself if you don't take on projects. Take on something big, A lot of people say, "Oh, don't go too big, don't do that, don't do this. Do more studies, do more stuff like that." But I feel like you should throw yourself into the deep end and try to do big things, If you really, that's the whole reason you started, right? You don't want to just do sketches all the time. You want to draw some cool stuff, right? So my point is just, start. You don't need somebody's permission. And if you want to improve, you got to do that. You got to make sure you're actually putting your skills to the test. So yeah, you can't develop a style if you don't know how to draw, right? So I'm just saying, learn how to draw realistically. I see a lot of people when they start, they just copy their favorite cartoons or favorite animation style or favorite manga. I think you should always learn how to draw realistically first. And then after that, because the thing about drawing realistically is that it teaches you how to, you also got to learn how to draw environments. You got to learn how to draw the correct lighting. You got to learn about line weights, all of that. If you try to go and learn different types of styles, that have to do with manga or cartooning, that's a lot of work if you already don't know how to draw realistically. Because all cartooning is and drawing comic book style stuff is simplifying real life. And if you don't know what, the rules of drawing stuff from real life, you're just gonna, what are you simplifying really? It's not simplifying at the end of the day. It's still gonna be a lot of hard work. Cartooning is a simplification, and if you don't know how to draw stuff, real stuff, you ain't gonna simplify anything. You're just, you get what I mean. So yeah, my point is just draw realistically. Figure out how to draw you gotta do realism. Stuff you draw, whatever you're drawing, is something that actually exists. So you gotta do that. And I guarantee the skills you pick up will help you in any kind of style you will pursue later. And then that's where you could start to exaggerate stuff and make stuff up in your art, is when you understand reality. You'll know certain things look better under certain conditions and stuff like that. So my point is, set up some realistic standards for yourself so you can measure your progress. You cannot see your progress if you're not comparing it to things you've done in the past. So make sure you have standards and something to compare it to. And that's why drawing realistically is the best thing if you're trying to improve. Because you always know if you're doing it right or wrong just by looking at what you're trying to draw. If you're trying to draw a giraffe and you're drawing it looking like a giraffe, then you failed, right? And you could say, oh no, I meant to, draw what I feel. But if you're trying to improve and you're drawing realistically, it doesn't matter what you feel. If it didn't come out looking like a giraffe, it ain't a giraffe. If it ain't a giraffe, you didn't improve. You're not doing it right. So, that's the thing. When you're practicing, you have to be kind of harsh on yourself. I don't mean to give yourself a difficult time. I'm just saying, be realistic. Be honest and critique yourself correctly. Also, get people to look at your work. You want to make sure, you don't, you got to develop being honest to yourself. It's a skill. Being able to truly see what you've done. But yeah, what I'm doing right here, though, is just going over, I think in the other video I did some really simple line work. Just to make sure I know what I'm drawing. And then here now I add the actual line weights. Just to make sure that everything stands out. Sometimes when I'm inking, especially over paints, anything that's painted, it doesn't appear well on camera. I don't know why. But yeah. Another thing about measuring your improvement is that once you get good at drawing realistically, or you're decent at it, because I don't think anybody ever gets really good, unless you specialize in it. And most people find drawing too realistically boring, so they never really keep at it. But yeah, once you start doing your own stuff, it's hard to really set a standard anymore. So what you gotta do is make sure you draw more, because you'll have more work of yours to look at and see progress. So you gotta develop a body of work. Once you do that, you'll be able to compare. Because once you develop a style and once you got a, once you got your own way of drawing, it's hard to know when you're improving, especially if you're not working often. And that's why I say, when people say, oh, don't just draw a lot, for practice, do this and that. It's like, nah, rule number one's always draw a lot. I mean, as in like finished products, you gotta make sure you produce something, you got something finished. And I'm not talking about practice, I'm not talking about sketchbook pages. Remember one time I heard a comic book artist, I forgot who, they were saying when they go to conventions, people just show them sketchbook pages and stuff. And it's like, you could always give criticism on those, but how do you know that you can apply what you have in your sketchbook to an actual finished piece that requires more than one skill that you have practiced on one sketchbook page? You got to make sure that what you're practicing can be applied. Make sure you're actually practicing skills that you can use to eventually convey what you want to convey. Drawing portraits is cool. It's fun doing sketches of portraits in your sketchbook. But if you're not going to do a serious portrait, like a finished one, a fully rendered portrait, then what was the point of all that practice, right? I mean, if you find it fun, that's cool. But I'm just saying, like, if you want to get better, you're always going to have to do fully rendered, fully realized artwork. You got to make sure you're completing something. Especially if you want to do this to get work. You got to show people that you're ready for the job. And also, for the job you're looking for, or the kind of work you want to do, there's going to be time limits, there's going to be deadlines, there's going to be all that. So make sure, if you're assessing yourself, you give yourself a time frame. When you don't give yourself a time frame, and you build up this body of work and you don't know how much time it took for your pieces, it's going to still be hard to compare yourself to your older work, because you got to keep track of how much time it takes to complete a piece. And that way you know if you're truly improving. Because if it took you 10 hours on one piece and it came out better than one that you spent 2 hours on, of course it did. You spent 10 hours on it. It should turn out better, right? But if it took you 5 hours on a piece and 5 hours again on the next piece, and the newer one came out better, and you spent the same time on both of them, means you're improving, right? Let's say you stopped rushing your work and now you draw better. It just means that the problem was you spent too little time on your work. So always keep the variables in mind from piece to piece you're working on. Therefore, you can correctly judge your improvement, I think that's enough for this video, and thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something. If you disagree or you got any more advice, leave it in the comments, and thanks for watching. Laters.